How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing well. We've had quite a last couple of weeks, so I'm living a good life right now.
You sure are. Dozen wins in a row, a perfect 10-0 road trip. I mean, how do how do you manage such a situation, right? What's your approach here?
Yeah, it was an interesting road trip because we went to Texas, which is always, no matter what the records are, it's always, an interesting series and a rivalry series. And we won in a couple different ways, and then headed out to the West Coast and won some games, and then ended up in Kansas City where it was extremely hot. It just kept winning games, in different fashions. We won late, we won early. We had tremendous starting pitching. We also had a bullpen that had been, scuffling a little bit, that bounced back and did well. So, you kind of play that complete baseball, and you expect to win. And then when we got home, we did lose a close game to the Tampa Bay Rays, and then responded with back-to-back home runs to beat the Rays and win the series. So, when we're operating the way we are and we're playing, pretty well in all facets, pretty talented team, and we feel pretty confident.
And Altuve is leading the league in average. He also, his on-base percentages is 401. I mean, so 4 out of every 10 times he goes to the plate, you watch, and he's on base. What's your favorite Altuve story, the defending MVP? You got one for me?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do. I mean, it was in my first year with him. He was the first player that I met when I became the manager here. He was in town when I flew in for my press conference, and I sat down with him, and so I immediately got to know him pretty well. And you go through the 2015 season, and that's a few years ago, but that was our coming out party when it comes to the Astros and this young talent, the arrival of Correa. Lance McCullers Jr. came up. Jose Altuve was starting to get a little bit more national recognition, and Jose's always been gifted with just showing up the same every day and playing hard and able to compete at this level and never wants a day off. And so we go through the 2015 season. He has a remarkable season. He ends up having a really tough series against the Kansas City Royals, and we got beat out in the AL Division Series. And it was the first time we'd been in the playoffs in over a decade in this organization. So it meant a lot to a lot of people. I think it probably meant the most to Jose Altuve because he had never been on a winning team in the big leagues. He had been the face of a rebuild that was, largely unpopular around the game. And so he comes into my office after Game 5 and broke down in tears, and he was upset, and he was so disappointed in himself because he only got 2 hits in the division series, and he apologized to me right before I went out and addressed our team at that end of the season sort of manager-coach opportunity to address your team. And right then and there, you realize what winning means to Jose and how he was going to take all the bullets, so to speak, when you lose a series. And all I told him was, you aren't the reason that we lost. You're the reason that we got here. And it showed a lot of character out of Jose at the most vulnerable time. He was going to take all the heat, even though he was largely the reason we were there.
Well, I mean, and I love bringing him up for many reasons with you here, AJ, because obviously baseball is such a human game. It's all about heart. It's all about courage. It's all about achievement when people think that you don't have the physical attributes to do that. And then it's also about numbers, analytics. And you were at the forefront. You're at the cross-section of both of these things here as the defending World Series manager. What does it look like on your desk with all sorts of numbers? And how do you take all that in before a game and use it in real time? Can you?
Well, I'd love to tell you. I'd love to tell you and continue the joke that, my dry erase board is full of mathematical equations, and my desk is full of spreadsheets, and we have a little bit of that, but we have a pretty good blend of how to apply the analytics. Everybody has the same information. I don't care how old school you are or how traditional you are. The information's there for you. We just feel like we're pretty good at applying it, as fast as possible with some of the best players in the league. And so, my desk looks about the same. I mean, we do such a good job of having all the information and then deciphering it. And what I've learned in my time is some players can handle a ton of information, some players can't. The secret, I think, is being able to apply it to your players to get the most out of them. It's not about being the smartest or having the most or kind of being the most bizarre or even on the progressive side, you've got to figure out, just like in a cooking recipe, how much of a sprinkle of this, a tablespoon of that, a full dose of this, and the players respond accordingly. So I can see that my desk, I guess I say this, some sort of mathematical equation out of a movie.
So what about resting players, AJ? I know you've been talking about that a lot. You and the Dodgers are two teams that played into November last year. Altuve, the only one who's played every game so far. Have you applied any sort of numbers? And what's the trick to that in your mind?
Yeah, we have. I mean, obviously it's different physical bodies. I mean, I've got George Springer, could be playing on Sundays if he wanted to, and that big physical strong athlete and runs into walls, runs into people. Like he has one speed, and so I pay attention to him a little bit. I always got to be cautious of his lower extremity, his legs, like how his hamstrings, how his quads are doing. Carlos Correa had a little bit of a scare with an oblique issue, so he missed a few games. Alex Bregman, is a terrific young player who, I've got to just force a day off on. And then Jose, I gave him a day off the other day until the ninth inning with the game on the line. I had him pitch hit. So, we do pay attention. We played to November. Us and the Dodgers, the only two teams. I've been pretty forward with our players. They're not going to play 162 games. I know old school and back in the day and the Cal Ripken streak and all that stuff that we just feel like we can physically get these guys in a better place. The second half will be nice to us with some days off with a new collective bargaining agreement, but no doubt we have to pay attention to be good. Ironically, the day after Jose gets most of the day off, he goes, deep twice and has 3 hits and looks fresh as ever. So we have to remember these guys are human.
AJ Hinch here on the Rich Eisen Show. From your perspective, manager, and also the position you played when you played in Major League Baseball, seeing the pitching staff, the way that it's performing, what can you compare it to anything that you've seen before, AJ?
I remember the Phillies, back when they won the World Series and they had, kind of rolling out a lot of different, Cole Hamels, Cliff Lee, Roy Halladay days. They were just really, really deep. I remember the Braves growing up. I was a big Braves fan. I get to watch them on TV all the time. The Maddox, Smoltz, Glavine. I mean, when you're throwing starting a really good starting pitcher every single day, it puts a ton of pressure on the other dugout. They just know they've got their work cut out for them. Our team knows if we get the lead, we have a really good starting pitcher that's probably going to go 7 innings, which in today's world is pretty deep into a game. It's nice to have that group, and they feed off of one another. Verlander sets the tone. Cole has been a tremendous addition. Charlie Morton's probably as quiet of a guy to have a great season. Keuchel and McCullers, who are leading this staff over the last couple of years, are certainly a great way to round out, the rotation. I don't care which guy's starting any given day. I have complete confidence that we're going to get deep into the game, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and have a chance to win. Well,
in the few minutes I have left with you, AJ Hinch of the Astros here, I'd love to bounce off you a theory that I've been throwing out here because I'm not a fan of all these strikeouts. Obviously that line from Bull Durham, they're boring, they're fascist, or et cetera, et cetera. There's just not enough baseballs being put into play for my liking, and part of the reason I think it is existing is because of the shift, that too many guys are trying to hit it over the shift best they can, and you employ the shift just as much as anybody else. What if there was a rule to get rid of the shift? Would you have a problem with that?
I would. I don't think I wouldn't like it. I mean, our sport, to give a different analogy for you, is it's not supposed to be a layup drill. So you have to play to the defense that they're playing. If in football, if they're playing man coverage and it's bump and run, or they're up in your face, you can't say, "Hey, I'm allowed to have a 5-yard start." In basketball, you can double team people. In baseball, we can suppress offense because of the way we position our players. But what's different about that analysis? We still give up half the field whenever someone's hitting. So I would encourage the hitters to make an adjustment more than I would try to create an even more boring sport that you're just going to stand in these positions where the grass is going to die underneath your feet, and we're just going to play this vanilla style baseball, I don't think I would support that.
Well, I mean, just as a fan, as well, we're on the subject, if I may engage. I don't want to pay, just for an instance, to watch Bryce Harper bunt down the left field line or go the other way.
Sure.
I want to see him leave the yard best he can. And obviously, you're paid as a manager to make sure he does not, with however way you can. And baseball is also the only sport where the defense holds the ball already. It just seems to me,
Right.
It's too much of a bizarre look and an advantage, AJ. to
Sure.
be
Well,
honest.
I would say this. You said you want to see Bryce Harper hit the ball out of the ballpark. I'm defending against the error when he doesn't. And so I think that playing the shift is really the error. He's trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. The fact that he comes over the top of the ball and he hits the ball on the ground to the right side of the infield doesn't mean he should be allowed to hit because he made a mistake. That's two different ways he can beat me. One, if he does make contact to hit the ball out of the ballpark to appease the fan, and the other is if he rolls over and makes a mistake, he's supposed to have these open, gaping holes where his mistakes are going to be. That's what you did. Why don't you tell him to hit the ball out of the ballpark to left field? It's the same home run. You can watch him trot around, and the entire field's open to him. That's the cat and mouse game. That's the chess match. If they don't want a single, if they don't want a base hit, I'm not saying bunt, I'm saying manipulate the barrel enough to be a complete player, then they have to deal with the consequences.
So then I guess this might be an odd question to ask the manager whose team possesses the best team ERA and batting average against right now. If you could change a rule to make offense a little bit more prevalent in the game today, what do you think would be the most fair application of a new rule, A.J. Hinch?
I might lower the mound. I think that might be something that to take a look at. I don't know if that would increase offense. I think we have to start training our players to be offensive players and not, sort of the all or nothing approach that's being compensated in our pack. I think we have to, if we're going to change offense, I think we have to train better. We have to play the game better. We have to. Maybe we have to deter strikeouts by the compensation package. Maybe contact is more important than simply, the beer league softball all or nothing approach.
So do you sometimes look at exit velocity for real, like you as a manager, from bat speed and things like that? Do you really parse it down?
I'm aware. I'm aware of it. I don't really pay a ton of attention. I mean, I still use my eyes. I know when a ball's hit hard. I don't really need reading. I know when Stan hits the ball out of the ballpark, or Judge, or George Springer rifles a ball in the right center. Like you can tell me it's 100, 110, 115. I just know it's hard.
AJ, love the way you go about your business and always love our chats. Appreciate the call. Maybe we'll catch you in Washington, D.C. For the All-Star.
Awesome.
Okay, and then down the
Look
road.
forward to it.
You got it.
You got it.
You bet. That's AJ Hinch. His Astros take on the Kansas City Royals tonight.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.